Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude Beyond Mystic, and welcome to this evening's special report. Of course, the title is Financial Eclipse. With me this evening, of course, is Mr. Bix Weir. You can find him at roadtoruta.com on the web and also here on YouTube while supplies last at Road to Ruta. Mr. Bix Weir, how are you? Welcome back to the show, sir.
I think I'm the last one left on YouTube. I'm not quite sure if there's anybody of the original Truth Talkers left
You're
there.
you're one of the originals who still has the original YouTube without having any reboots or rebrand. Yes, you're very lucky. Well, welcome to the show, Mr. Weir. Of course, with me also is the Astro Woman herself, Julie. Of course, you can find her at maisonjupiter.com here on the web and also on YouTube at Maison Jupiter. Julie, Astro Woman, welcome back to the show. What are we doing?
Thank you for this warm welcome. Appreciate it. Hi, Vix. Hi, JC. And hi, everybody watching. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this live interactive show. We are simulcasting tonight, folks, both on YouTube and also on my Rumble show. So we'll try to behave and do the whole show here on YouTube. If for some reason you guys are not sure, we could always check off of YouTube and continue on Rumble. So folks in the live chat, if you're not sure, please go find me here on the Rumble link. I'll bring that here to the description and also to the live chat so you can follow us there. Let me bring the link here. And hello, everyone on Rumble as well. Julie, let's start with this. We weren't supposed to do a show tonight. Of course, it's Janine's birthday today, so we were kind of taking a day off and doing all of this scheduling stuff. But as we were looking at all the evidence that is pointing to us here by the analysts and the research from Bix and a lot of our other friendly guests here, we're realizing that it's go time. We just recorded the Astro Woo last weekend, as well as the Crypto Woo show, and it looks like we're in for some big changes here for the month of May. We're already into it. We already have this bank collapse here, as Bix was reporting on his YouTube channel. Set this up for the audience members here. What, in the big scheme of things, is perhaps the most important alignment here, astrologically speaking, that's affecting us here moving forward in the month of May?
Yeah, well, we're right in the middle of two eclipses, and those are the two last one we're going to have while the nodal axis is still in the financial axis in astrology. So both of the nodes, North Node and South Node, are in an axis of sign for about a year and a half. So for a year and a half, we got the nodes in the financial axis of Taurus and Scorpio. So basically what that means is that we're having a lot of transformation as a collective to make as it pertains to our financial system and the way we trade with each other using energy, all kinds of energy. So it's not just about money, of course, it's about what we give, what we take. All this kind of balance is being reviewed on a personal scale, but also collectively. So for a year and a half, we had to make a lot of changes and a review. And of course, that includes the banking system and the financial system we're in right now. Mm-hmm. So the eclipse that we're going to have in just 4 days time on May 5th is the last one we're going to have in the sign of Scorpio for 8 years. So the next one is going to be in 8 years when again we have the nodes in the financial axis. So that's a big event, and that one is going to be a lunar eclipse. So it's a full moon eclipse, so 3 times more powerful than a regular full moon. And it's in the sign of Scorpio, so the sign of banking, the sign of a lot of things that are Scorpio relating, but let's just keep in mind that it's going to be close to the South Node in astrology. And when we have an eclipse next to the South Node, it means we have to let go of all the more, let's say, low frequency expressions of the Scorpio archetype, which are criminal money, corruption, anything that's linked to corruption, crime. We're on YouTube, so I'm going to just try to make sure I say the right stuff, but I'm pretty sure you guys know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to reveal, I think, a lot of stuff about what's being hidden, because it's also about hidden money and hidden sort of transactions between people, if you know what I mean. So lunar eclipse, especially in the sign of Scorpio, is really intense. And so it's going to complete this really big set of transformation we had in the financial axis. So May 5th, and also another reason why this one is going to be super powerful is that the ruler of Scorpio is Pluto. It's the big bulldozer in astrology, the big game changer. And Pluto just entered a new sign, which also ushers usually society into some form of crisis. So it just entered the sign of Aquarius, and it's T-squaring this eclipse, so making a really high tension point to this eclipse. So it's kind of big karmic changes for the society as it pertains to the way we're trading. So how we exchange energy, money, and how we give and take energy.
In the last show for the first eclipse in April, you had titled your slide "The Last Battle," and I'm noticing here that for the May 5th eclipse, you have the big rebellion. So between the last battle and the big rebellion, we're seeing a big rebellion around the world, including in Paris here in a big way. Also, again here in the last couple of days. Bix, you're nodding your head. In your view, I mean, you've been at this for so long, like a lot of us, we're a little bit long in the tooth, tired of repeating the same thing. But we find ourselves in a very, very different period of time now where a lot of the things that we were expecting, forecasting, remote viewing, receiving from astrology or tarot, are starting now to plot a course for us in a very specific way. We're seeing, as Clefai would say, a lot of temporal markers falling down here on our timeline. What's your view of all of this? Because a lot of people in the chat will say, you guys have been talking about this for 20 years. It never happens. The U.S. keeps kicking the can down the road. What, in your view, are the markers? Like we just talked about the astrology here being a big influence on all of this. But what do you see are maybe the first 3 or 5 markers that are telling you that this time is very different, and we are looking at, as Julie is calling here, perhaps the last battle and the big rebellion as it pertains to our financial systems? Bix.
Well, I hope it's the last battle. But then again, I've thought it was the last battle many times in the past. Do not underestimate the power of market rigging with computers. Do not underestimate the power of controlling the narrative on the media. We can't underestimate their just assume they can do anything for as long as they want. That's the key. Do we still want to do this? Does the United States of America still want to be in control of their currency, be in control of the markets, be dictating to the world what to do? Or is that battle between the good guys and bad guys, has it shifted? I believe it has. And both sides want to crash the system. Both sides know that it's not sustainable, and both sides are having a problem keeping it going. The question is, after the crash, what do you do? Do you turn to the banksters and say, give us your CBDC? Or do you turn to the Constitution and say, hey, we have no politicians left anymore because they all went away with the crash. What do we have? We have a constitution that says gold and silver is money. Can we work with that? I feel bad for a lot of countries who don't have that kind of framework to move to after their currency collapses, because we've seen collapses of currency before. In Zimbabwe is a great example recently. And what do they use now? They use the U.S. dollar. Argentina uses the U.S. dollar, and now everybody's saying, well, we can't go use the U.S. dollar. They've abused the crap out of that. Every country on the planet is trying to get rid of their U.S. dollars now, or at least talking about it. What are we going to go to? And I do think the United States will return to a gold silver standard to some extent, which would mean they'd have to stop rigging the price of gold and silver. They are both very rigged. Silver more rigged because it's more important, a lot more important than gold ever was. Silver has been money since 3000 BC, continually used as money up until 1965. And that's an amazing thing. And, other countries were still using silver as money after the United States took all the silver out of their coinage. Just because the last, 40 years, we've forgotten that, 50 years, we've forgotten that silver was always used as money, doesn't mean that it's not going to return to money. I think that's what we're seeing at the U.S. Mint, what they're doing with the Silver Eagle program. I think that's why you see every warehouse on the planet emptying physical silver out of their coffers. So yeah, I think it's a very exciting time. Clearly, the system is not long for this world. The question now comes into how bad will it be to shift over to something else? I'm a big fan of pulling that Band-Aid right away and just take the pain, because the pain's going to happen. We've been kicking the can since 1913. So let's pull the Band-Aid, get on with something else.
It seems like the pain has already started, and you and I could talk about some of the bank runs here in the last couple of weeks where that's going. I could show you an article here in Canada where they're talking about, of course, introducing a Canadian CBDC to prevent all of these, nasty bank runs, because those are bad, but CBDCs are good. We'll get into that in a moment. But Winning It Tracy was saying, hey, yeah, Mexico just implemented some new legislation with respect to the mining industry. So did Bolivia actually last week. We'll get into that here in the show. Julian, let me get back to you here too, just on the astrology front. We have some themes there in the Scorpio chart for this full moon, including some of the child trafficking, the sexual stuff and all that. That's not for this show. We did kind of get into it a little bit in the Astro Woo, so people can go and check that out. But Max is asking, he says, hey, I'm a Scorpio, so maybe this is my lucky eclipse. How would you frame that here, looking at this solar return for Mad Max? And also, as you said at the beginning of the show, how we use some of this portal energy in a conducive way to maybe remove limiting beliefs and also remove limiting programs. The question of not being allowed to have abundance in our life. How do we use those energies to really propel ourselves into this new world here? What would you say to Mad Max, Julie?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because usually if we look at what's going on in the world, people are going to say, well, we have really nothing we can do about it concretely. So, but the answer is yes. Every astrological event happens collectively, but also you can do something personally, as above, so below. So what you do as an internal work is going to affect the whole world. So great question. And if you have a lot of Scorpio in your chart, or Taurus, because it's we're right now in the Taurus season. So if either your sun, let's say, is in Scorpio or Taurus, or you got a lot of planets in both signs, it means that you've been under a big transformational process for the last year and a half. So we're coming to an end with this big transformational process. And if you did a lot of work on yourself, because Scorpio, especially South Node being in Scorpio, it talks about healing a lot of patterns, generational patterns, karmic patterns that you had from this life and also past lives. A lot of working on, as you said, JC, limiting belief. And also Scorpio and Taurus, as I said earlier, are part of the financial axis. So it's also healing your relationship to money, to receiving abundance. Scorpio is all about receiving. So we know we've been put in a slavery position from the bad ones for a long, long time. So we're all healing that, us being treated as slaves, as work slaves, and also not being able to be as abundant as we should, putting a lot of energy and quality work into the world. So we're all healing that collectively. And this particular eclipse that we're going to have in 4 days is the perfect portal of time to release. So release stuff that no longer aligns with yourself, that you want to get rid of. And that's where also we're kind of having this full moon Scorpio meditation with Elena doing the singing bowls, and with Janine and JC and I. So that's kind of a big live event that we're trying to have together, to have as much people doing the meditation together. So it creates a really big, let's say, energy portal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we're trying to release as much as past programming, also dark magic. It's part of the Scorpio archetype. A lot of stuff that have been preventing us from reclaiming our own power. So, and we all know that it's also tied to the financial system. So the financial system has been a tool to enslaving us to the old matrix. So we're getting rid of all that during this eclipse.
Well, that's fabulous. And talk about also why we have sexual healing in there. For some people, they're like, how does that connect to the financial system? Well, it does, because your energy, your chi, your prana, your orgone, depending on your nomenclature, is all a result of how you can manifest in life. So your ability to manifest is directly related to how much power you have, one, and two, how clear that power is. So, of course, healing at that level also, and again, in the Scorpio full moon, it is conducive to that type of healing. Explain the links there, Julie, between the sexual healing or the healing with your energy and how you create abundance and how that's important here for you in this transformation towards this new world we're about to live?
Well, healing, well, first of all, your connection to yourself is really key. I mean, I'm sorry for the noise in the background. I'm just trying to, oh my God, spring here in Canada. So basically, the Taurus and Scorpio axis has a lot to teach us about what we give versus what we receive. So if we heal our connection to ourselves, including healing our traumas from past lives, and often those traumas include some form of sexual trauma. And sometimes it's your ancestral line. Sometimes it's in past lifetimes, which also has to do with Scorpio, and it's preventing you to access your own energy, chi prana. And this connection to your sacral chakra, especially for women, is the part that allows you to attract abundance and make you feel worthy to receive. So it has everything to do with being abundant, also financially. So as you're doing this healing work with your sexual energy, which is reclaiming your prana, your chi, your energy, it allows you to remove all the blockages from this energy exchange of Taurus and Scorpio. So Taurus is all about how you invest your energy, and Scorpio is all about how you receive. But if you unconsciously you feel like you're not worthy of receiving and you have a blockage, let's say sacral chakra, you're going to be able to put a lot of work out there and help a lot of people, but not necessarily get the rewards back. So the flow of energy is going to be blocked at some point. So I think it's very, very, very important that we all be very aware around this time of this, because it's been part also of this slavery to the old matrix. So sexual energy, which is Scorpio, also deals with this financial slavery in some kind of way. So they're connected.
Really well said. And somebody in the chat just said, it scrolled by really fast. We said this is not a planet of lack of abundance. We have full abundance. Yes, I agree. Yeah. But we're brainwashed into thinking that we have scarcity, and we're all fighting over these fake paper dollars. And I think part of deprogramming those limiting beliefs here is part, at least, of the way to self-mastery and getting out from under the system of control. Anyways, guys, if you're interested in that, please check out beyondmystic.academy. This full moon meditation is going to be this Friday, May 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern with Janine, Julie, Elena on the singing bowls, and of course myself. So do check it out. And Barbarella says, love this, love it too. Yeah.
And thank you, Barbarella. And if I can just add to that, like, I think the water noise in the background is a good synchronicity, because it talks about being in this flow of energies. So whenever we have a blockage in our chakra system, in our energy flow, it prevents us from really getting this flow of energy. And money is a form of energy, and it has to flow. So yeah.
Well, when you talk about cash flow, river banks or banks of what's the other term, Bix, with respect to banking system?
Currency.
Yeah, currency in the river, in the flow. Yeah, it's
make it rain.
Make it rain. Make it rain, exactly. Speaking of making it rain, sir, thank you so much for making it rain for me. You just sent me these beautiful new Road to Ruta silver bars produced by Miles Franklin. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Bix. I appreciate that. And I really appreciate this one, of course, 007. I serialized. Let me bring this up on the big screen here so you guys can see that. These are the new Road to Ruta coins. I absolutely love these. Bix, are these available for purchase, or does this only come with your membership? Explain that to the audience members who are interested in maybe getting one of these beautiful coins here.
Yeah, we give them away with memberships only. And we've done that since day one with the coins. We've had a couple different coins, and we've given away cryptos. But it's with a 1-year membership. Hopefully, what I say is over time, it's going to pay for your membership.
Right.
And it has, for the most part. There's been a couple cryptos that are still like hovering down in the basement, but with the rest of the cryptos, but they'll be set free one day, some of them.
I think we're getting close to that moment. Cliff High was sending us something just a couple of days ago to you, Joe, and myself here about some of the trading patterns for Bitcoin. And it appears that we're entering this bull market here if we're not already in it. So we can get into that maybe a little bit later into the show. Bix, I want to lay down some track here. We're going to have Andy Sheckman on probably around 8:40 or 8:50 later this evening to talk about the physical market here in gold and silver. A lot of things have happened in the last couple of weeks. We're seeing a lot of the resources dry up, and we're seeing some of the premiums go through the roof again. But before I get into that, explain to the audience members here today, they can go watch the video, of course, here on your Road to Ruda. But Bolivia last week made some changes to the legislation here in terms of buying more gold to shore up the reserves. And now we're seeing Mexico here make some big changes also here too. And what's interesting, I want you to explain that to the audience members, but it's just, again, as one of those temporal markers. I've been saying that for years, and people are saying, nah, Canada would never nationalize the mines, JC. You're out of your, you're out of your league. I'm like, there was legislation already written on the shelf back in 2013 with relationship to this. So what's happening now in Mexico, Bix, and how does that perhaps foretell what could be happening very soon here in America and also in Canada and perhaps the rest of the world?
Well, Mexico is did change some of their mining laws to make it tougher to mine. And they're going to force the mining companies to give some of their profits to the people of the area. Basically, Mexico has been screwed for hundreds of years. Over 30% of all the silver that's ever been mined from anywhere came out of Mexico. Had they not exported all that silver, they'd be the richest country in the world. They still can be the richest country in the world if they just hang on to their silver when they rig the price at 50, less than 50% of its all-time highs from 1980. I mean, something is broken. And I've been screaming about mining companies. I love mining companies for one reason, that they have so much wealth in the ground. But the other reason why I don't think they will do well in the future is they have too much wealth in the ground. When people lose their monetary system, they get very nationalistic. They say, okay, what do we have within our borders that we can use as money if this fiat money is broken? And of course, they're going to start nationalizing mines. Gold and silver will be used in money in most countries, I believe, especially the countries that have it. And Mexico has always been the largest producer and exporter of silver on the planet. They produce, I think it's just under 30% of all the silver every year now. And they keep giving it away, shipping it to China to make products and things like that. All they had to do was hang on to it to take care of their people. So I think they've learned that. I think a lot of the South American countries have learned that too, because they're all starting to say, hey, why are we giving away our fortunes for these stupid pieces of paper or electronic blips? We need to hang on to these commodities because they are our future. And this could not happen at a worse time for the supply-demand dynamics of silver, with electric cars going through the roof, with solar panels using massive amounts of silver. The projections of everything is that they are the only industry that's going to use up every single ounce of silver. And there's like 10 different industries saying, we're going to need all this silver mined. It's just not there. And if you look at the history of silver mining, at least the last 20 years, it's pretty steady at 800 to 900 million ounces every year. It doesn't go up, even though all the things we make with silver, flat screen TVs, solar panels, electric cars, are on these trajectories to say, oh my God, the Green New Deal. We wouldn't last 2 years doing what the Green New Deal says because we don't have enough silver. It's just not there. And I have always said this, but it's becoming more true to me. Silver doesn't go moonshot on industrial demand. It's industrial demand and mine supply. It's very boring. It shouldn't be a volatile metal. Silver goes moonshot when silver turns into that monetary metal, when the monetary system is starting to collapse. Mm-hmm. We saw it in 1980 when inflation was up at 20%. We saw it in 2011 when JP Morgan put their guy as Barack Obama's chief of staff, this guy Bill Daley. That's what really happened. That's why silver went to 50 and back down. They created an artificial bear market. And we're going to see it next. But that's when silver really starts to run and take dominance. It's not the industrial side. It's when people are scared of what's about to happen monetarily. Silver has always been the most important monetary metal for the people. I think it will be again very, very soon.
And you know what's interesting there in BIX? Also, credit card debt here in the United States just passed $1 trillion. Of course, people are already feeling the pain here because of the inflation. The lack of purchasing power. We're seeing the Fed now starting to suck dry the money system here. This is a chart of the M2 money supply going down. Of course, the last time they did this was 90 years ago during the Great Depression around 1930. So there is a big setup here, as you're saying. Of course, it can't come at the worst time here for these manipulators to see other legislation starting to look at gold and silver as real money. Now, we've seen also in the States in the last couple of months, a couple of states making gold and silver legal tender, ostensibly to prepare here for what is about to come. So that's interesting, Bix. Is that a competition to perhaps what the Treasury is doing in terms of creating silver eagles and hoarding them and not selling them? There's a theory out there that they've increased production, yet there's less coins available for purchase. So is that because they're setting up, on one hand, this new financial system and some of these states have caught wind to that? Or are they preparing, not knowing what's happening, other than seeing the writing on the wall that the financial system is at its end, and they're trying to get a plan B going, so to speak, in their local state? What do you think is the explanation for all this?
Are you trying to turn me into a conspiracy theorist?
No, hell no. This is called Beyond Mystic. What are you talking about?
No, I've been on top of this for a long time. And yeah, that is my theory is, and it's not a theory because it's exactly what they have said.
Mhm.
Ventures Gibson, the head of the mint, said they greatly expanded the Silver Eagle capacity, and yet they only sell 900,000 coins per month when they had, even before, they had a capacity of about 50 million coins per year. And now they're on schedule to get the lowest Silver Eagle distribution in probably 20 years. Something
is 12 or 15 from the last thing I saw.
Yeah.
So you're probably right. Yeah.
But I mean, we're looking at right now, they're on track and they're doing 900 a month.
Yeah.
And they've never explained why,
Mm-hmm.
even though Ventures Gibson keeps saying, oh yeah, we've expanded Silver Eagle production. So, I mean, my take is yes, that's exactly what's happening. They are making the Eagles. They did expand production. I think they're making 60 or 70 million coins per year, and they're just not giving them to the people. As a matter of fact, they redesigned the Silver Eagle to kind of show that. On the back, they changed the eagle flying to the eagle adding to the nest with a branch and its talons coming into the nest.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, they changed the put a little notch on the edge of the coin, and nobody knows why. They call it a security notch. And I'm like, what's it? That secures absolutely nothing unless you put an identifier or a QR code on that coin, so you can hold a specific coin at a deposit, like an institution, some kind of depository. I wouldn't put it in the bank. I think all the banks will be gone soon. I think the post offices make great places for the federal government to come in and say, okay, we need a new monetary system. No one believes these criminal bankers anymore. You wouldn't buy the CBDC. We have to go to a national money that we use within our borders. Nobody's going to trade with us anyway because we screwed everybody over. We got these post offices in every town in America, and most of them have security features with them. Mm-hmm. Because they do money orders and stuff like that. So hey, why don't we just redistribute money to the people of the United States, gold and silver coinage, and we'll hold them at their local post office so they can cash it in at any time. And some of the Fed documents from the original Road to Ruta shows, like, one of them shows a girl walking into a bank trading bills for 19 gold coins.
Yeah,
this is at the Fed. This is a Fed document.
And it's funny, they gave a hat tip to Mr. Glix, Bixweir. it's so obvious to me what's happening, but yet people look at this like, nah, they can't be. I mean, come on. Of all the names they could have added this character, why would it be Glix, Mr. Bixweir? Absolutely interesting indeed. Bix, let's move into some of the cryptocurrency news here for the week. We'll come back to gold and silver here when Andy is back on. I wanted to share a couple of slides, and then I'm going to ask Julie to look at the astrology again here with respect to this Scorpio full moon eclipse, and why perhaps the CBDCs are heading for perhaps this big battle here too. So let's bring up some of the news from this month. Of course, Zimbabwe, the central bank, issued a gold-backed digital currency, and they're about to make it available for the public to buy here on May 8th. Here, central bank digital currency consultations across will end in June 17. This was in the UK. So you can see the battle is already up in the air here. And what was interesting with this one too, breaking news, PayPal announces that Venmo users can withdraw Bitcoin to external wallets starting in May. So we have a time frame here for big changes coming up. Now, you and I have been talking for a long time about the fact that the banks had all created their APIs, their backends, in order for you to one day be able to just log into your bank account. You'd see your checking, your savings, and then you'd see the custodial services that the banks want to do. When we're seeing this live starting to happen now, it appears that we're getting closer and closer to that. Here in Canada, with respect to the rhetoric of all of these bank runs here we got in the last couple of weeks, we'll get into bank runs a little bit later in the show. They're suggesting here as a trial balloon that, of course, introducing a Canadian central bank issued digital currency could put an end to all of those nasty bank run crises. Of course, the rhetoric is thick here. You guys can go and read that article, but it sets the stage here for perhaps this last battle, as Julie was saying in the first eclipse here of April, to this now, the rebellion against these CBDCs. Julie, let's bring up this slide again here for this May 5th eclipse and explain why this axis is triggering also the technologies, but more specifically here, the CBDCs. Julie.
Yeah, so during this eclipse, we're going to have, well, the sun and the moon opposing each other because it's a full moon. So the sun will be conjunct Uranus, so very close to the planet Uranus. And Uranus in Taurus, Uranus means digital or something including new technology. Taurus is money. So while Uranus transits the sign of Taurus, it takes a long number of years because it's a slow-moving planet. But during this eclipse, the sun will shed a light on this Uranus and Taurus. So this natural tendency of, let's say, the energies of the cosmos to have a new technology regarding money. So the sun will illuminate that, but also we got a really high aspect of tension, which is the moon oppositing the sun. I'm having trouble to speak. It's probably this Mercury retrograde. So the moon in opposition to the sun with Uranus. So the moon is going to shed a light on a lot of corruption, I believe, around CBDCs, but also the moon and the south node depletes the sign of Scorpio. So banking, I think, will take a lot of hits close to this eclipse. But let's just mention here that the eclipse is going to be felt more than just a day. It's probably going to be more than a 6-month influential period after this eclipse. So the south node and the moon are going to suck out the energy from the sign of Scorpio. So banking, the big banks are probably going to have issues around this time. And opposite to that, we got the sun and Uranus. So probably, let's say, the dark one pushing for the CBDCs because they're like, oh, it's going to solve a lot of banking issues. And at the same time, we got Pluto making this T-square, so this big triangle. So it's at the midpoint of this eclipse, so between the sun and the moon. So Pluto, that just entered Aquarius, talks about the power using new technologies. So this next era, this age of Aquarius that we're all moving into. So Pluto talks about power struggles. And right now it's at the 0 degree between the sun and the moon during this eclipse. So you can imagine like this whole tension that brings Pluto as a center focus of where are we going to go using this technology. So for me, it's kind of this big crossroad where Pluto can be used for more freedom, which is Aquarius, favoring the people, decentralized assets. So let's say more decentralized cryptos, but also Pluto, because it's at 0 degree and at a very tough tension point at a crossroad, can also be used right now for more control for the dark ones. So basically, because it's at this like 0 position, it's at this on the fence, it's kind of, it can go from one way to another during this eclipse. Because I still think that, I'm just gonna, sorry, JC.
Go ahead.
I still think that the future tendency of that is more decentralized because we've got all those big energies in Aquarius, which is freedom, sovereignty, the people winning their power back. So I think The long tendency is more decentralized assets, but still, because Pluto is on the fence during this eclipse, it can, like, all the two sides are going to push for their own, let's say, power.
Wow. Deanna says Ireland just passed a law, a criminal offense for reading disinformation from alternative sources. Okay,
Wow.
similar to that in Canada here too. Just in the last couple of days, we'll probably have to do a whole show just on that. Bix and Julie, what was interesting here, and what Julie was saying, there's tension here, but I'm seeing also tension maybe on both sides, and perhaps the better word would be the infighting. Now, Bix, you and I were reporting on this here a little while ago. This was Janet Yellen's testimony, acquiescing to the fact that there was a big a fight happening here between the big banks and the regional banks, and one of the congressmen was pointing that out to her, and she had to say, yeah, it's happening, but not for the reason, of course, that she was using. But at the very least, she was admitting here that our deposits are not safe unless they were part of this super PAC agreement of the FDIC, the president, and the Treasury Secretary. And that brings us into what just happened this week again, or this weekend here with First Republic. But don't worry, everybody, everything's fine. Jamie Dimon here just told you, what's the quote saying that our government invited us to, there's just another quote saying our financial system is very strong and sturdy. I'll bring it up. It's not the right slide, but anyways, Bix, explain to the audience members here what's happened. Just again here, you had this on your YouTube, I believe, yesterday. Also, let me go back to this. This was an important chart also about silver and that $50 peak there with Operation Slam Down after the kill. I can get into that here on YouTube. At any rate, Bix, what just happened here with the banking system this weekend, and how does that kind of push the indications of where we're going to go here in the next couple of days and weeks, and how that fits into what Julia is talking about here, this huge tension, but perhaps also this infighting here to try to save the system on one hand and to wrestle control of it maybe in the other hand. Bix.
I think it's interesting. JP Morgan was pretty much put handcuffs on JP Morgan about big bank mergers and all that. They didn't want JP Morgan getting too big and all. And now all of a sudden, JP Morgan is the savior of the banks. JP Morgan has the same problem that First Republic had, that Silicon Valley Bank had. All the banks have the exact same problem. The question is, which banks are going to be bailed out? And so far, all of them have been. All the banks that have been bailed out so far, they did cover the uninsured depositors.
Yep.
The moment that they don't cover the uninsured depositors, every single bank will go down, because all of them have the same problem. And that's that they create, when they get a deposit, they create 9 times, 10 times the amount of money and lend it out on longer term loans and leases and everything. Mm-hmm. So no bank can survive a bank run. If 10% of the people want their money back, want their deposits back, they got to sell 10 times that in assets. And a lot of these assets are mismatched to when they think they're going to need money. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to stop here. And I gave you a chart of the next 3 banks to go, probably. And it's going to be going and going until ultimately everything will end up, if it stays, kind of in control. Right now, I'd call this very much in control banking.
Right. I call it duct tape and baling wire, but
that's control for the bankers. I mean, no bank is different than any other bank. They're all fractionally reserved, meaning they create all this money and put it out on long-term loans. Yeah. The question is, who do we want to blame?
And also, SVB was already on Basel III regulations, which are supposed to be the safest regulations for the bank to follow in terms of reserve requirement ratios. But that's for another discussion. Here's the quote here. JP Morgan CEO says the system is very, very sound, quote unquote. That sounds a lot like the system is contained back in 2008. Of course, it wasn't contained. Bix, let me bring up that slide that you're talking about here. Let me see if I think it was this one here. Yes. The 3 next to go, maybe. Explain that to your audience members why this is by no means over, and perhaps why these particular 3 are on the list, and who might be the target of the first bank going down here in Canada. We're getting rumblings now, and we're seeing some people short a specific bank here in Canada, similar to some of the hedge funds shorting SVB just before it went down. First, let's talk about what's happening in the U.S., Bix.
This is actually from back when Silicon Valley Bank was going down. These were 4 banks that they pointed out have the exact same structure as Silicon Valley Bank, or similar no short-term assets they can sell. Their mark to market was destroying them. And then word got out and people started withdrawing their funds, and which creates even bigger problem. First Republic just went down. We heard that news this morning. The next one's Zion's Bank, Western Alliance Bank, PacWest Bank. I think those will all go down in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And then you get to the 4,000 other mid-tier banks. They'll all go down by next summer. And then you get to the big banks. They'll all go down by September 11th. That's my take on, because, I mean, Jamie Dimon can't survive a bank run either. If everybody raised their hand and said, oh, my God, I hear there's a derivative problem at JP Morgan. Let's run out there and get our deposits and put it back into. Our problem is we keep putting our assets back into criminal banks that are destined to be destroyed. The entire population is waking up to what fractional reserve banking is.
Yeah.
Fractional reserve banking is where money is created and where these massive bets go out on long term, and they're taking your money and giving you practically no interest on keeping your money there. It is a scam. It always has been a scam, but people are starting to wake up. First it was Silicon Valley Bank. Then it was, what was that second? There was 3 banks in the beginning. That's Silvergate Bank.
Signature Bank in New York.
Bank. Yeah. And then now it's First Republic. They all have the same investment philosophy, which is fractional reserve banking. Yeah. They got all their loans out there. Wait till commercial real estate, the real pain in commercial real estate hits. All these 4,000 banks, over 4,000 banks have huge exposure to commercial real estate. The mark to market on those are 50%, less than that. So if anybody runs into their bank, they're going to say, oh my God, we don't have the money.
Including, you think commercial banking, commercial real estate is bad now? A lot of those interest rate hikes that are already baked in the cake suggest really lower prices in real estate here in the summertime. There's always a 6 or 8 month lags, and that's already baked in the cake, and it's already bad now, as Bix is suggesting. So the problem could be even worse than we think. Bix, you just talked about a very, very tight, specific timeline. Somebody in here was saying that Cliff was talking about a Tuesday in the month of May. I'm not sure he said a Tuesday. This one here, a Tiffy. But Bix, speaking of timeline, for people who want a little bit more, you went into a big detail about your timeline here on the private road on Rotorua. Do you also have that on YouTube? Where can people find the rest of those details?
Well, no, that I was just throwing that out there. Don't hold me to that timeline, because I have seen, like, us in 2008 on September 11th. That's the day the good guys tried to take down the system. $500 billion went out of money market funds. Right. And we were literally hours away from the end of everybody losing everything. Yeah. I think it's going to be blamed on the big banks this time as they suck up all these assets. Don't forget, there's a $2.5 quadrillion derivative problem hovering out there that JP Morgan's one of the biggest banks involved in the derivative market. They have 50 trillion in derivative bets, side bets, and they have only 3.5 trillion of assets. So yeah, wouldn't it be great if all the banks went down because JP Morgan went down? And then we could just blame JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and just the big banks, and then restart the banking system with the mid-range banks that didn't do anything wrong. Right now, they're gutting the mid-range banks. Janet Yellen is charging them fees. The FDIC is charging them fees to pay for the big guys. It is insane what is happening. And these banks don't have it. It's all out on loan. There is not one sound bank in the United States. If people understand that a bank run can happen to any bank.
Yeah. I think I want to play this clip here because I know some people watch the video. A lot of people are going to watch this video here tonight, and it bears repeating here. It lends credence not just to what Bix is talking about, but also this tension and this infighting that Julie is picking up also in this astrology. Let's take 2 minutes here to look at this exchange from this committee hearing.
See if we can refresh this one here. Just make sure that good. Okay. Will the deposits in every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of their size, be fully insured now? Are they fully recovered? Every bank, every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of the size of the deposit, will they get the same treatment that SVBP just got or Signature Bank just got?
A bank only gets that treatment if a majority of the FDIC board, a supermajority of the Fed board, and I, in consultation with the president, determine that the failure to protect uninsured depositors would create systemic risk and significant economic and financial consequences.
So what is your
And
plan?
that determination.
Right. So what is your plan to keep large depositors from moving their funds out of?
Okay, so let's just hold on here. That was me analyzing that too. I couldn't stop here. Oh my god!
So, that's such juice. It's so ripe for analyzing.
Right. Anyways, it goes on to say, well, what's to stop all the big players here from moving out of these regional banks and going to the big banks because they'll be fully protected? And she says, well, because he says that's happening now, and she agrees. Oh yeah, that's happening, but that's not our plan. Yeah, of course. Anyways, go ahead.
It is impossible. It is 100% impossible for them not to bail out all depositors that have a bank that has FDIC insurance. It doesn't matter the limits anymore, because just one, it doesn't matter if it's a big bank, a systemic bank, or Joe Schmo's bank down the street. Just one bank that doesn't pay back all deposits over the FDIC amount, everybody would run to their bank and say, oh my God, what's going on? They didn't bail out this bank. And it would start instantly. That's probably the best thing to happen, because it would take days before the entire system shut down because you can't get your money out. Yeah. Now they could lock it up. They could gate it, as Andy likes to say. Gating means you just can't, you have your assets in there, but you can't get any out. We'll give you $20 out of your ATM every 48 hours type of thing.
Yeah. And of course, there's the on-ramp gating also when you want to get into crypto, gold, and silver. We'll get into that in a second here. I see our special guest is in the green room here. We're just going to add one more segment. Andy, we'll be back to you here in a second. But Bix, explain these two slides here. We're talking about the unrealized gains here. And also this next slide you sent me earlier today, the number of assets of banks on the problem bank list here. Paint the picture, as we have here with these slides, of why this is not over and why we're still very much in deep trouble, even though JP Morgan is telling us here in this headline that the system is very, very sound, quote unquote. Bix.
It's as sound as it was before. Go back to the other one.
The other one first? This one?
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
That is a perfect example. So this comes from the FDIC themselves. This is the perfect example of what raising the interest rates did to these long-term assets. Absolutely made them pieces of shit. You don't want to hold an asset that's returning 1 or 2% if you're a bank and inflation's eating away. You'd be losing money. And especially when you can buy other types of assets. That's why the value of these assets, it says available for sale, just got destroyed as soon as they started raising interest rates at the end of 2021. Right. You can see what happened. These are not little amounts of money. This $675 billion at the end of last year. So this was even before, I mean, obviously somebody knew that the system was falling apart. I don't know if you guys saw the FDIC meeting. I don't know how they got the cameras and the sound of all that.
Oh, in the haircut video.
Oh, yeah. They're talking about how the system is unsustainable. No bank is going to survive. We could talk about that amongst ourselves, but we all know this is complete bullshit. The public can't hear this. And then everybody heard it.
Yeah.
So people have learned a great lesson. And that lesson is don't leave your money in a fractionally reserved bank. Don't leave your money in the hands of anybody. Get your cash in your own pocket. But the other chart really quick is the amount.
Hold on just a second here. Guys, this is the video of the FDIC that Bix is talking about there too. You're seeing all these bankers around the table. You can go back and watch this deposits are not safe video. It's still on my YouTube. You can find it on Rumble. But here they're suggesting that, yeah, they know for a fact this is baked into the cake. There are going to be haircuts and that their job is to protect deposits here. But letting the people know, the depositors, that their deposits are in trouble would create a bigger problem for them and a faster bank run. Word for word, that's what they're saying here. This is from their own mouths. Yes, Bix, you're saying yes. Okay, let's go back to the last slide. I believe it was this one here, Bix. Go ahead.
Yeah. And you notice they didn't give anybody a haircut in the 4 bailouts so far. Nobody got a haircut. Everybody's fully funded. You know, the latest, they kind of finagled JP Morgan in there to pretend. I don't know where they got the $50 billion to lend them, but that's a different discussion. This is from the FDIC.
Perhaps that was from the gold heist in Canada.
This is from the FDIC. Number and assets of banks on the problem bank list. Look what happened in 2022. It exploded Look at the number of banks. 400 banks were on the problem list.
Wow.
That's what the FDIC knew this was coming long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing they can do about it because they want this system to implode. They want to destroy the system because it's so unsustainable, and we're getting our asses handed to us by China and Russia and every other country because we're playing the unbacked fiat money game and they're playing it better than us.
Mm-hmm. Litecoin Lisa has a good point here. She says, trade your gold for silver. I know you're a big proponent of that at Bix also. We're going to have Andy Scheckman here join us in just a moment. And we'll get into all of that. Julie, before I bring Andy on here, explain to the audience members here too, the alignment that suggests here that we're going to, energetically speaking at least, and also on a personal and collective level, start putting our value in different directions, or starting to perceive value in a very different way. And that this is also baked in here, energetically speaking. Which slide do you want me to bring up for that, Julie?
Let's talk about Jupiter entering Taurus. I think, Bix, you're going to like this very much because I think it pertains to silver and the value of silver. So Jupiter usually spends 1 year in one sign, and starting on May 16, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, May 16 of, in the coming weeks, Jupiter will enter the sign of Taurus. And when we're looking at astrology, mundane astrology, and what it rules in the world, Jupiter talks about an inflation in prices to the sign it transits in. So Taurus talks about all tangible assets, something you can hold in your hands. And also Taurus is all natural resources. So first point here, I wrote Jupiter will bring inflation and prices to Taurus themes. So what is Taurus in astrology? It talks about food. It talks about anything also that's more natural. So organic foods, also precious metals, and especially silver. I believe because the moon is connected to Taurus in astrology. It's exalted in the sign of Taurus, and the moon represents silver. So I'm thinking, I think it might be an important period of time, and it's going to be from this month of May until May 2024. So the next year, probably, we're going to see a lot of changes in the prices, especially precious metals, but silver specifically. Also, Taurus in astrology rules land. So I think the land we're building on for property will be even more valuable. All natural resources are ruled by Taurus. So also crystals, wood, natural resources to build houses, so construction materials. So anything that is like a prime material and that you can, let's say, build anything with it. So Bix was talking about solar panels using silver. So that's kind of the concept here. So all those prime natural resources will tend to go a lot higher during this transit of Jupiter and Taurus. So I think it's going also to help us understand that we need to invest in smart ways for our future. So more on the personal side of things. We're going to start thinking about building generational wealth, because Taurus is all about legacy and also what you're going to give to your children, your grandchildren. So trying to build for the long term is kind of the idea here with this transit of Jupiter and Taurus.
Wow, very good. And speaking of generational wealth, of course, is Mr. Andy Scheckman from Miles Franklin Precious Metals Investment. Mr. Scheckman, how are you this evening? Welcome back to the show.
JC, good to see you, my friend. And you too, Bixie. Hi, Julie. How you all doing?
Doing well. Excited to have you.
Good to see you all. You know, I jumped in late. I was on another podcast, so I wasn't watching. And right when I came in, I saw what you were talking about with FDIC. And I don't know if you guys mentioned, I just think it's worth mentioning. I don't know if anyone noticed, but the Federal Reserve has given a loan to the FDIC for $174 billion. At the beginning of at the end of 2022, they had $128 billion on their balance sheet, and now the Fed just lent them $174 billion. I mean, does that make sense to anyone? We're all feeling safe and cozy, having $250,000 insurance by the FDIC, but the money that would have been paid out to Signature Bank and Silicon Valley Bank would have rendered them completely insolvent. So does anyone get the warm and fuzzy feeling about FDIC insurance? Not only when these idiots say these things and they keep falling out on YouTube, but not only that, they don't have enough money to bail out any of these big banks. And it's no wonder that JP Morgan was hoodwinked not only into giving them a $30 billion lifeline a few weeks ago, but to quietly smoothing things over here so that people didn't freak out the way that they did a few weeks ago. Though that to me is something that I think needs to be spoken about on top of one other thing that is important to mention. And this is the, and if I'm saying things we've already talked about, excuse me. And the other one is the discount window. The discount window right now, I think $5 billion was added to it last week, to 153 billion from 148. They have to pay 4.75% to the Fed on that money, which is very, very high price for them, and post collateral that they had on their balance sheet over a month ago. So they can't go buy treasuries right now and use them as collateral. Those assets have to be marked at par right now. Not only do they need to post collateral, but they need to pay a massive amount where they could just much easier take money from depositors that wouldn't cost them anything, just a fraction of a percent. But instead, what you were talking about, those toxic assets on their balance sheet now, when people run on the banks, they have to come up with money. Either they sell those toxic assets at a 50 or 60% haircut, or they're now borrowing money from the Fed in the discount window. So they come up with cash now, right now, I need it right now, I need it. Because if not, they need to sell the assets and it's another bank failure. That is a huge indictment of the banking system right now. And I think people need to look a little closer than just what we're being told by the mainstream. The discount window and the fact that the FDIC just took a $174 billion loan from the Fed makes all of this, I think, a lot shakier than we're being led to believe.
I totally agree. And Lakeside Laura says, yes, warm and fuzzy as a barbed wire sweater.
Right.
That's a good one. Bixie, you were raising your hand to all of this. If you want to do a quick rebuttal here. And then I want to set that in context to what's happening in the precious metals markets and why people, generally speaking, are sniffing this out. Not just the smart money anymore, but all the way down to the local coin shops. We're seeing empty shelves everywhere we go. Bix, your first reaction here to what Andy was just talking about and how that relates also to the window there that Senator, I think Kinjorski, was that the name? He was talking about the electronic run on the banks in 2008 and why they're trying to supply that window from the back end right now also. Go ahead, Bix.
Yeah, I find it very interesting that there's no way they're not going to pay the uninsured of a bank that's FDIC insured because it's over the limit. That would instantly tell people, oh my God, number one, I got to pull my bank out of here, my money out of this bank. But what bank do I put it in? What bank is not fractionally reserved? What bank would cover it? No bank. So, I mean, for a gold and silver investor or a gold and silver dealer, this is a dream come true. Because one of your options is to either move your money to another bank, move it into cash, or move it into gold and silver. And I have been screaming for a zillion years, silver is the no-brainer of a lifetime. It is the bank killer. Banks love gold. They got a lot of it. But when the banks go down, what are they going to have to sell? They're going to have to sell all their assets. What's the most liquid asset? Gold. If a bank owns gold, they're going to sell that first to stay in business. I don't know any bank who owns silver anymore. JP Morgan had 1.2 billion. They gave it to Bank of America, who I think it ended up at the U.S. Mint and at Warren Buffett's coffers and maybe Elon Musk. But I don't know anybody who's saying, what about silver as money? We all know the silver supply demand stuff and the industrial side is going berserk because nobody can get silver and the technologies are going crazy. But silver as money is coming back into play now. And it's such a more powerful dynamic, like we saw in 1980 when silver went to $50 in a blink of an eye when the Hunt brothers said, I need silver. So the big money, I think, will be running into silver before the bankers are going to run into gold. The smart money, if you like gold, buy as much silver as you can at 80-1. And then when it goes down to 7-1 or even 1-1, which I think it will, sell all your silver for gold, and then you make 10 times the amount of gold you have currently in your hands.
I'm with you on that. Andy, before I bring you back on, somebody was asking in the last segment, we forgot to get into it here, but the bank that was being shorted here just recently was TD Bank here in Canada. We had some reports a couple of weeks ago that there were at the regulator level signs that somebody was covering for something very, very problematic here in Canada that could suggest a bank that was in difficulty, and we were kind of trying to sniff that out, which bank that could be. This is a report here. It's One Opinion, guys. You can go check it out. This is Dan Dix here on Press for Truth. You can find him here on BitChute. This video was very interesting. First of all, Andy, do you know anything about that here on the Canadian side? Have you heard rumblings there also? If not, that's okay. But bring that into the context here of what's happening here in the last couple of weeks since we had you on the show here with the physical demand for both gold and silver.
Now, I think it may have something to do with Schwab. I think Schwab owns TD Ameritrade, and I don't know how they're connected, but you look at what's going on with Schwab right now, and they're paying 1 and 2 and 3 month CDs at a rate higher than they can borrow it from the Fed for. But in order to borrow it from the Fed in this new window, not the discount window, this new program that they set up, and I forgot the name of it, what it's called. It's a new program that they just set up that is suspect to it even being legal. It's called the Bank Term Funding Program. They have to, once again, they have to post collateral at par, and they're paying 4.6% for that funding. They're paying higher than that right now to these CDs to get the depositors to deposit the money, which doesn't, again, why would they do that? Because they need the money right now, and they don't want to post the collateral, because the collateral that they have are the bonds that are now toxic. So if I had to guess, it would be, now I haven't heard that, but if I had to guess, it would be Schwab, because I do believe they own TD Ameritrade. I'm fairly certain.
Okay.
I would think that would be the one.
And for those of you thinking that in Canada we were spared by this banking crisis in 2008, just because Stephen Harper had told everybody on the Canadian news that the banking system here in Canada was sound and we didn't need any bailouts. No, we didn't need bailouts. We had backstops instead, which amounted to exactly the same thing, $100 billion or so in backstop to the major banks here in Canada. Same scenario here. And per capita, it was actually more money spent into the banking system here in Canada to leverage them out as opposed to in the United States. So we're not by any means safe from all of this panic. Now, Andy, put that into context now to gold and silver. I know your phones have been off the hook since this banking crisis started. I showed in our last show that deposits are continuing to leave the banking system here at a very rapid clip. The president coming out saying that everything was safe, and Janet Yellen coming out saying everything was safe and that your deposits would be covered didn't seem to impress much people. On the contrary, you're getting more and more clients who are saying, take my money now. I don't want to leave it in my bank, and please send me some gold and silver, whatever you got. Explain what happened with the banking crisis and what now is going to happen perhaps this week with what just happened this weekend here with First Republic. Andy.
Yeah, when Janet Yellen was being in the middle of her inquiry by the House inquiry on the banking problem, and the representative from Oklahoma said, well, Madam Secretary, you just bailed out Signature Bank and Silicon Valley Bank, and we didn't think that was the playbook. After the GFC, we were told that wasn't the playbook. But okay, so does that mean if one of my regional banks in Oklahoma fails, my constituents will also be bailed out? And she said no. Mm-hmm. It requires a uber majority from the FOMC, which is the Federal Reserve, the FDIC, who is now borrowing money from the Fed, myself and the president. And, those two are nearly brain dead. So I think the four parties involved are all compromised a bit. And that really freaked a lot of people out, certainly freaked a lot of people out. And so we added 13,000 clients in 35 days. That's 3 or 4 years worth of client acquisition in 35 days. Working 18 hours a day is an understatement for 3 solid weeks. I've never seen anything like it ever in my life. And then you can take a step up and look at what's happening, like, for example, on Comex, where, everyone was freaked out that a few weeks ago, JP Morgan dumped several million ounces of silver into the registered category, thinking they were going to try to flood the market with their silver that they hold. But that's not what they were doing. That is how the game ends. The game ends when someone says, I won't take cash settlement for your short contract anymore, who takes the other side of these shorts. We want delivery. Because when that silver went into the registered category, the numbers went from like 32 million to 39 million. And now we're all here just a few weeks later, we're down to 30 million. In other words, they transferred the eligible silver into register because someone said, no, we want delivery, and it's gone. And it's gone. Where did it go? Who took it? I think that you're seeing, you're talking, this is a 5-year low on not only on all ounces of silver right now, which is about 270 million ounces in Comex, but the registered category too, which is the low since silver squeeze for sure. We've seen it go in the past since 2021, since silver squeeze, 400 million ounces were on Comex. There's now 271 million ounces. And, that's 130 million ounces a year that is just disappearing, or almost 5 million ounces a month, just disappearing. Where the hell is it going? And the biggest money in the world is accumulating it. And so if you then look at what's happening on a retail basis, it's a level of anxiety I can't quite explain. And this is why they say there's no bull market like a metals bull market, because there's no interest in making a profit here. It's just get me out of harm's way. And when you look at the assets right now that where you would want to safely put your money, well, it's not treasuries, it's not real estate, it's not stocks.
Where do you
go? And when you look at silver, it's probably the most unique set of circumstances, a depleting supply in terms of geologically, a depleting supply in terms of above ground stockpiles, and expansion and massive expansion in uses in industrial applications, and a renaissance in monetary applications. You could not find a better setup for what I would look at as the investment or the value of a generation. And people are realizing it, not just the country of India, who imported 304 million ounces last year, and there's only 270 million ounces on Comex. I mean, do you see a problem here? That the ability to continue to suppress these prices is coming to an end. I think it's coming to an end quicker than a lot of people would agree, because when you're getting to that low of a level of registered and that low of a level in total stockpile, of which most of it's not for sale, the game is getting close to an end. And you can manipulate prices when everyone is moving in a direction away from gold and silver. It becomes wholeheartedly different and extremely dangerous game to play when people will say, no, I want delivery. And I think that's why the metal went from eligible to registered. But in the 33 years I've done this, I have never experienced anything like what we saw for the 3.5 weeks after Silicon Valley Bank failed. And it was a level of anxiety and fear that you could make a mini series about. It would be that interesting to watch. It right. was truly, during Silver Squeeze, people said, I'm going to get GameStop. It's going to be like GameStop. It'll be like AMC. We'll get the bullion banks. We'll get the silver market. They wanted to make profit. This is not about profit. This is about people saving their ass. And I find it interesting how short people's memories are here, and the way that they quietly have given money to the FDIC. They have quietly had JP Morgan bail them out, and quietly JP Morgan gave them $30 billion a few weeks ago. All of this is quiet to keep people happily out of happily asleep. And again, I'm surprised that we didn't see a major rush here today. We didn't. It was busy, but not like it's been. And so you see another one or two of these banks fail, and I think it'll be game on in this industry, and product will disappear.
Well, on one hand, we're seeing those. On one hand, we're seeing those banks go down, and we're seeing, of course, the mainstream news pushing out that the system is very, very sound here, as JP Morgan CEO was saying earlier today. But on the other hand, too, back to what you were saying there, Andy, Bix, you've been looking at the Commitment of Traders report here for the last little while. Let me bring that up on the site here for people to see that. But What's happening now? Is it wash, rinse, repeat as before, or is there systematically something that's triggering you to say something's off here? And you just talked about JP Morgan adding to a category here to try to solve some of their issues. What are you seeing with these reports here in the last couple of days or weeks, even?
Well, I refer to Ted Butler on the COT stuff, and he's seen it. He knows exactly what's going on. The big four who usually short the crap out of silver, and then as it runs higher, are not doing that. They might be close to being out of their short position, but they're getting there. And there's I think the most interesting thing to me right now is that this is a Comex delivery month for silver, and there's hardly anything being delivered. Everything's being sent to London on the EFP, Exchange for Physical.
Yeah.
Over 100 million ounces last year in Comex contracts had to be delivered into London because they just don't have the metal at the Comex. I mean, I think this is one of the lowest Comex silver delivery months in 20 years. And with all that's going on with physical silver everywhere, it's not because people aren't interested in silver. Those people who need it for their industrial production, Elon Musk, for example, needs massive amounts of silver.
Right.
He's not going to go to the Comex. The Comex can shut down the game. They showed the Hunt brothers that back in 1980. They're not going to get it from the Comex. The Comex is where it's too visible, so they're going to London, the LBMA, to get secret silver out of there, and they're taking it from SLV that had at one time, I think they had like 730 million ounces, and now they're hovering around 500 million ounces.
Is it possible, Andy, and Bix also, Andy, let me bring you back up, that some of these bigger manufacturers are maybe circumventing the Comex, the exchange for physicals, and maybe going directly to the mines, buying mines, or in some cases making deals off the truck for these Doré bars? And is that why perhaps some people are suggesting here that the pipeline of incoming silver here into inventory is slowly choking or coming to a halt here? Explain that to the audience members.
Yeah, I mean, the word is disintermediation. I mean, if you can cut out the middleman, why not? And I've talked with Keith Newmeyer about that privately, about that concept for a very long time. I was involved for a brief period of time with a product with the Royal Canadian Mint, where the whole concept was to bring the metal directly from the mine to the Royal Canadian Mint and disintermediate the bullion banks and have people buy it on a distributed ledger. But the term or the idea of removing the bullion banks, removing the middlemen is huge. The problem with it is that the bullion banks make life very easy for the miners who are cash strapped. They call them up, say, we have a load that we just pulled out of the ground, and where do you want us to send it? And JP Morgan would say, send it to this refiner, bang, you got money in your account. It's hard for them to do that, but you would think it would make a lot of sense for them to go directly to the end user. And look, I mean, if you realize there's 270 million ounces on Comex, of which only 30 million are in registered category, that means there's 240 million ounces that it's unaccounted for. Who owns it? I mean, I own some, my company owns some, my clients own some in Brinks JFK, which is a Comex warehouse. Who's got the other silver? I mean, maybe it is a lot of the industrials that have already taken care of their supply. Maybe they are doing the exchange for physical. Maybe they've been enticed to do so. So it doesn't create more problems with the withdrawals off of Comex. But there's no question, however they're doing it, and I'm sure they're trying to think outside the box to get rid of the middlemen, to go directly to the mines. And because there's no question about it, look, silver is called inelastic. You need it, even if it's in a small quantity. You don't care what it costs you. You need it to make your iPhone, your flat screen TV, to make your solar panel or your battery for a Tesla, whatever it is. And they would be foolhardy to not think ahead and to get in front of this when you see countries starting to nationalize mines, and what Mexico just did in terms of shortening the time that these companies can own the property. You're looking at a move away from I think, or a move towards, ultimately towards nationalization. And these countries are going to realize that the assets they're sitting on in the ground, in my opinion, will be the foundation of the next system of commodities and transparency rather than debt instruments in an opaque system. So yeah, they would be stupid to not do what they can to get in front of that. So I think.
And is that what's explaining perhaps the rise in premiums also? Is it just because of the lack of availability, the stress on the system,
Well, that's what
or
premiums
the
are.
disintermediation also?
But that's what premiums are. I mean, in normal times, premium is a function of bringing a blank piece of gold or silver to market in a refined form.
Yeah.
And so if you have to have a blank piece of silver, it's called a planchet. You stamp it, you put it in tubes and boxes and send it out to the distributors like myself. You have the cost of all of that whole process, plus running the mint and the distribution and all that stuff. That's normally premium, but premium right now is a much bigger function of supply and demand. You know, you look at all these states across the country that have legalized gold and silver for debts, public and private. This is a new trend, and half of them say American only. And I'm sure Bill Holter is smiling when he hears that. Others say not just American only, any sovereign government mint will be used for all debts, public and private. And so, you know, you look at the amount of premium on American coins, whether it be junk silver or silver eagles, they're stratospheric.
What are we at now? 80, 90%?
On silver eagles, if I sell them at $16.50 over the price of silver, I'm probably the least expensive in the country. Junk silver, you know, 10, 11, 12 bucks over the price of silver, it's becoming unobtainium.
Right.
So, you know, there are some things with premium that are right now a much bigger function of supply and demand. And I think ultimately it defines the market when you realize that the people Bix and I have been talking to for the last 20 years are the pimple on the elephant's ass. Mm-hmm. And, you know, all of a sudden that pimple has grown much bigger into a boil, and it's still not enough to have the elephant turn around and look at the other direction. And that elephant is still blissfully asleep, thinking that the Fed fixed everything and everything will be okay. When the elephant wakes up, and maybe it is as a result of these states telling their people, their constituents, get ahead of this. The representative from Idaho stands on the legislature floor and says, we need to let our people do what the central banks are doing and get out of the way of the brain dead monetary policy of the Fed. Buy gold and silver. That's what he's telling the legislature. So there are people who are waking up to this. And look, when you realize we've represented such a very small portion of the whole financial matrix, it doesn't take a whole lot of interest to watch the supply literally disappear. And the premiums are a function of that type of movement.
And Bix was saying earlier too, like on one hand, they're closing the gates for you to get your money out of the old system, and on some, in some respect here, the onboarding is becoming harder and harder, not just because of the premiums, but also the lack of availability in a lot of the different products that people are looking for. Let me ask you guys a few questions here. We have some new people, new viewers watching the show too. They might be new to this. They're interested. I had a question list on the top of the screen. Let me start with maybe Bix on this one. Someone is asking, hey, is 12 monster boxes of silver enough to get through this? Now, I know that's a delicate question, Andy, and it's very personal to the person's circumstances, but generally speaking here, for the people who are trying to extricate themselves out of the old system here and get their monies out of the casino, so to speak, what would you recommend to them in terms of ounces per body weight? I know that's an old term that people use, and also the type of silver perhaps they should buy if they're just getting into this decentralization of the financial system.
That's a big question, especially on type. It's interesting. I was messing around with that Chat GBT thing, the AI.
Yeah.
And I said, how much silver should I own? And they came back with, well, as an investment portfolio, people feel comfortable with between 5 to 20% of precious metals. And I'm like, wow.
Of their net worth in precious metals.
Yeah, of their investments.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay.
And to me, I remember, 20 years ago when people were yelling at me, I'm like, at least put in 10%. And like, oh, that's the craziest thing ever. It's 2% in gold and all. And I'm like, now it's like 5 to 20%. I mean, obviously, I'm more like 80 to 90% these days.
Yeah.
because the cryptos went down and silver just stays there, the solid rock that it is. And you will find when you take physical silver or gold into your own possession, you will find yourself not wanting to sell it. It's the last thing you want to sell. You can sell your cryptos much easier than going down to the store and giving them your silver, and they give you some bills and things like that. And you have it in your hand and you're like, holy crap, this is my future.
Mm-hmm.
I can survive off this. I can barter with this. I can do all these different kinds of things. So if you're new to silver and you don't have any, Silver Eagles are way too expensive right now because of what the mint is purposefully doing to them. They're trying to destroy that product. And they're just not making them in quantities to meet demand illegally. So I would stay away from Eagles. If you don't have any, get one or two, because I think it's really important to have a sovereign coins. I mean, I was a huge buyer of pre-65 coinage for a very long time. Bought a lot off Andy because it was cheap. It was one of the cheapest forms of silver you can get. And, oh, by the way, it's also made by the mint, which is the legal money of the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I'd say stick with, you want small denominations. Like if silver goes to $1,000 an ounce, like I think it will at some point, if you have a 100-ounce bar, that's $100,000. That's harder to cash in than the 1-ounce rounds. So I'd say go for the 1-ounce rounds. And tell you what, call Miles
over if you can find him.
Exactly. Call Miles Franklin and say, hey, what do you guys have in stock? I'm a big believer of buying what they have in stock.
At this point, I have to agree with you, Biggs. Choosing the silver might have been a good question a couple of years ago. Now it's like, what do you have on the shelf that's available? This is the bigger question, I think, for everybody. I'll get Andy to answer that too. There was another question earlier, Julie, about what's the astrology behind forcing humans now to decentralize on one hand, but to become their own bank. There seems to be this push now, and this is, of course, started in 2009 with the cryptocurrencies, like getting out of the matrix of control and that parasite between buyer and seller. What's the astrology right now, and why is that affecting us on a very core level right now?
Well, I think the long answer to that question is the age of Aquarius. So the big tendency is that we're moving into the age of Aquarius, which has everything to do with decentralization. So Aquarius rules any kind of system without a center. Sorry for the noise again. So Pluto was in Capricorn, which rules pyramidal system, top-down structures. So we know our government structures are all within that structure. And also the big corporations, capitalism itself is a Capricornian type of structure. So we're transitioning from Capricorn with Pluto moving into Aquarius. So that's kind of the big push into the age of Aquarius, according to me. And as I said, Aquarius rules system without a center. So all living beings being able to transact together without going through a middleman, which is basically Aquarian in an H here. So peer-to-peer transactions, cryptocurrencies, any kind of exchange that doesn't
require a middleman.
Thank you. Required is the word I was looking for. So it doesn't require a middleman is Aquarian. So Pluto moving in Aquarius is the big push for that. And I think it's going to happen even more rapidly than we think. And the other answer to that, more of a short-term answer, would be all the planets that are into the sign of Taurus right now, which rules more tangible assets. So I think this will help transitioning from one system to another, because Pluto spends about 20 years in one sign. So it's going to spend 20 years in the sign of Aquarius. So helping this transition is going to be the Taurian archetype, which will be precious metals, in my opinion, and also food, land, anything that you can really hold, materially speaking, is going to help moving into this next paradigm where there's no more middlemen.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Speaking of pyramidal structures, Andy, look at this pyramid. It's an inverted pyramid. And way at the bottom there, we see is silver. But Cliff was just adding that line here of the CBDC, another fake composite here in the old system, trying to stay in control. First of all, explain this pyramid, why it's so important for people to understand why silver is at the way bottom there, and what that means when the rest of it on top here starts crashing down, as we're seeing live now in our world. Andy.
Yeah, well, I mean, the weight of that of what is above it will collapse and crush the whole system. And I guess if you have a little bit in gold and silver, I guess it provides you safety. We are told it's the other way around, that the safety is in derivatives, in treasuries, and in stocks and bonds, and all of these things that we've been told forever are safe. And that's why, people, I think it's called Exeter's pyramid, I think is what it's called, but it's an inverted pyramid in this case, where to me, if you look at the Swiss have a model, they use a pyramid, a model that they followed for 300 years. And the base of your pyramid should be things like paid for real estate, liquid cash, physical precious metals, land. The middle portion of your pyramid should be, and that base of your pyramid should be 50, 60, 70%. The middle portion, traditionally, I would say things like treasuries throwing off a little bit of income, or utility stocks paying a dividend. I mean, something that throws off a little bit of income that has a modicum of risk, but not wholly risky. And then the top 10% would be things that, are very risky. And you could put, anything that you want in there that you would think would be risky, from mining shares, maybe in some people's perspective, cryptocurrencies, whatever. But the theory behind it is, if you lose everything on the top, you make nothing on the middle at all. As long as the base of your pyramid is safe and stable, you don't go backwards. That's how the Swiss have done things for 300 years. That's how I run my own finances too. And the problem is that pyramid would be turned upside down for everybody else. But what it's really showing is that when you do it like that, just how unstable it is like this, when all of these assets are going to go upside down, and there are very few people who have any allocation whatsoever to precious metals and to things that are safe and stable. It's going to create a very, very big problem for a lot of people. There's an old saying, you can't get out of the way of what you don't see coming. And most people don't even have any idea that precious metals should be a part of their portfolio. They'll understand that before it's all said and done, but right now they don't. And I think it should be the way that it's actually, Cliff has it upside down, is the correct way. It should be proportioned the way that the opposite of what it is. You should have a very big base of stable assets, and the riskier the asset, the smaller the proportion in your pyramid.
Well, as we're seeing all of the legislations around the world, we talked about Bolivia earlier, Mexico making new legislations. We talked about the states here legalizing gold and silver as legal tender. We're seeing this shift where we're going to see not a disappearance of these assets, but a change of category. So again, going back to the astrology and the value, where we saw value in one column, we're in the process now of shifting into that column through that pyramid there that Cliff was posting. Julie, there's another question from Stephanie asking, how does knowing my personal astrology for the month help me better plot this transition for my highest good? Stephanie is asking. Julie.
Great question. Well, first of all, let's say we all have the 12 energies of the 12 zodiac signs in our own birth chart. And depending on your rising sign and where your planets are located, it's going to help you really take advantage of opportunities. So we don't always have the same opportunities at the same time. And also, like the big astrological events like the eclipses, and also the big transits like Jupiter entering the sign of Taurus, which is a big, big transit for the next year. So starting in May 16, Jupiter will enter a different portion of your birth chart. And Jupiter in astrology represents opportunities, also opportunities to invest, opportunities to receive more material abundance. Also, it can lead you to finding more purpose in one area of your birth chart. So knowing where it falls has everything to do with you like swimming in the current of the same energies, of the right energies, as opposed to swimming countercurrent. So knowing your astrology really helped to, let's say, get in sync with the energies of the cosmos, and really learning how great of a tool the birth chart is to finding where those alignments are going to hit for you. So for instance, this Jupiter in Taurus is going to be different for everybody according to your rising sign. So when we did, for example, the Astro Woo for the month of May, we went through all the 12 zodiac signs and we explained, well, first of all, the eclipse on May 5th. What area of the birth chart is it going to hit you? So what are you going to let go of? Where's the shadow work portion of your life? Where are you going to do it according to your rising sign, sun sign? And then we went through Jupiter and Taurus, which is a big transit. So what kind of opportunities are you going to have according to your sign? And also, there's going to be a new moon at the end of the month of May. That's really positive for new opportunities. And Taurus has everything to do with material abundance, opening up a new start. For some people, it's going to be maybe a new revenue stream opening up. So it helps also to manifest the right thing at the right time. So let's say you want to do a manifestation ritual, you want to wish for something, while knowing and what house it's going to happen for you is going to be a lot more precise in your vocabulary of how you're going to manifest those things.
Well,
so
very good.
Since I have a lot of planets in my 9th house right now, so for example, it deals with traveling, it deals with international things. So for me, it's really good to manifest, let's say, oh, I'd like to travel, I'd like to buy something somewhere else. So for me personally, according to my birth chart, it's going to be positive, but not for everybody. So for example.
Got you. Very good. So a couple of ideas there, folks. You can look at getting your personalized birth chart from Julie here on maisonjupiter.com. If you use the coupon code Beyond Mystic, you'll get 10% off of this. And Julie just mentioned here the 12 zodiac signs. So if you want to know specifically your alignments for this particular month, how to best navigate with the currents here for your highest good, you can try that here at beyondmystic.net. And there, I believe, Julie, yes, we have the Save 33. So that's 33% off of each of these zodiac signs for you guys. If you haven't tried that already, please do. You'll see there's a lot of information here. This is a 1-hour reading for you, specifically with the general collective energies of how all of this is going to transpire and what it means for you specifically in your zodiac signs. So again, Save 33 is the coupon code for that. And Julie, speak about this very quickly before we go. This one here, this live meditation here on how to use this meditation, this energy here to also perhaps boost that energy, that manifestation power here moving into this particular transition. Explain this meditation for the people here who haven't heard about it.
Yeah, so eclipse portals are always really huge for our manifestation rituals. And this one, since it is Scorpio full moon eclipse, has everything to do with our manifestation with, well, first of all, sexual energy, with our energy in general, but also for our ability to open up to receive some form of material abundance and abundance in general. So I'm personally using this full moon to let go of the most patterns I have about, let's say, my relationship to money, to abundance, to opening up myself to receive. And when I say abundance, I can say about receiving help from somebody else is also some form of abundance for me. So I feel like collectively speaking, it's a huge portal of energy. And we're all being called to let go of a lot of patterns. And sometimes mostly unconscious patterns that are coming to the surface around those eclipses with all the big intense energies, because they want for us to first of all be aware of them, and so that we can release them and also welcome the whole new energy of Taurus when Jupiter moves into Taurus and has a lot of blessings to bring us. So but first, before we can receive all the blessings, we need to do a lot of healing rituals and cleansing rituals. So I think this is going to be the perfect alignment around this full moon.
I love it. Thank you. Ocean Odell says, set your intentions, manifest, and watch the miracles happen. Yeah. Well, that's very positive energy here through all of the different turmoils and péripéties in French. Anyways, weird things happening in the world in a rapid clip. Bix, I'm going to come to you last here for your last words of wisdom. But first, Andy, somebody was asking about premiums and availabilities right now. Let me just bring up the order form here on beyondmystic.net/silver. You sent me this new special discount code for the audience members tonight about the 2023 silver Krugerrands at $485. Kangaroos. Or sorry, not Krugerrands. Kangaroos, yes, at $485 over spot. Of course, the Beyond Mystic bars are still available there. Generally speaking here of what's in inventory, how you're working on delivering the Sending Ravens bar. A lot of people are asking about that too. They were waiting quite some time, and we know it was very difficult here for you guys in the last month with everything happening and the acquirement of all of these new customers who were in a mad rush here to get out of the dollar. Explain to the audience here what you have for them now and how quick the turnaround is right now for getting silver in their own position.
Well, I have over 100,000 of those kangaroos that hit my warehouse today, and I don't know how long they'll last, but they're the purest silver coins in the world. At $4.9 fine, those in the Maple Leafs $9.999. They come in mini mint boxes of 250. They're great. I like them a lot. But we have a decent supply of coins and bars. I'm not positive on your bars where we are with the last bar. We're making bars for other people like Bix and Mark Z and several others, so I'll have to check on that. I'm assuming that they're available. I mean, I could look real quick. I don't want to pull away from the screen here, but we do have availability in bars in 5 ounce, 10 ounce, kilo, 100 ounce. We have 1 ounce rounds. To what Bix was saying earlier, at the rate that I can sell you some of these coins, like a Philharmonic or a Kangaroo, it's almost better to buy these sovereign coins. They're just a little bit higher than the Buffalo rounds, which we have also. And look, I've gone to great lengths. The one lesson I learned in 2020 was to get way ahead of these supply problems, and I have, gone way out under my line of credit month after month after month. I've spent all the money that we bring in. Instead of taking distributions, I plow it back into the business, and I continue to buy more and more inventory, get as much as I can to be able to offer until I can't. And so there's decent supply right now. One of the things I'm most surprised about is that the premiums haven't gone crazy. Some of the online companies, they are crazy. I would tell you that I believe that we have the best prices in the country, and give us a shot, reach out to us. I appreciate everyone's patience through the last few weeks. Everyone, not just us, had delivery delays, and I had three 6-hour shifts, guys working 18 hours a day just to box things up 6 days a week, and we're fairly well caught up right now. So I would say supply is better than I would have ever imagined after what we saw the last month. Premiums haven't gone up the way I thought they would. Yeah, I think they will ultimately. I mean, they've come up from where we were a month ago, but I think they're still affordable. And, there's not much in the way of a delivery delay on most stuff yet. That can change very quickly, but right now it's okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I appreciate that, folks. You can fill out the order form here at beyondmystic.net/silver. I did speak with Jana a couple of days ago, and she said the Silver Raven bars were shipping. And so all of the people who were in the pre-order queue are getting contacted and have probably already been contacted here by the folks here to finalize the shipping information and the payment details. And so if you haven't already ordered the Sending Ravens bars, you can also use this form now to get yourself on the list in terms of the new production here moving forward. So that's the update for that. Julie, somebody in the chat was also asking about the meditation. Can they watch this on replay? How does it work for these meditations? Do they have to watch them live, or is there more on replay?
No, we know in the spiritual community that time doesn't really exist. So the meditation is live on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, but it's going to be available for whenever you want to watch. And yes, it is as powerful if you tune in into the replay as if you watch the live. So, and I just have to say that I love Connie Phillips' comment, get out of slave mentality, the way out of the matrix. Yes, it sums up pretty well my idea for this meditation. Thank you, Connie.
Okay, very good. I appreciate that. Thank you, Julie. And Hankowick says the Beyond Mystic bars are excellent. I sleep with one under my pillow. That's a good one. I wonder which one you use. The Triune card. Hankowick, let us know in the chat. Bix, roadtoruta.com. What's coming up here too? Are you doing any more road tours? And if you were to, a lot of people are asking here, there's a lot of confusion, and this is also part of the astrology here. We're being lied to by everybody right now. So there's a lot of obfuscations of the truth. But if you were to help the people here try to navigate this next month, what are the things you're looking forward here to, and what can you share from them maybe coming up? What are the things you're tracking here on Road to Ruta, also on YouTube?
Well, I've been really into the bank failures, tracking. They're going to come faster and more furious. I don't think the Fed will make a mistake and not bail out one bank for, over the FDIC insurance. I would recommend to everybody get as many beneficiaries as possible on your accounts. If you're over $250,000, each beneficiary gets $250,000 as well. Make sure you know them well, because they're going to end up with your money. But yeah, I spent a few days doing that a while back when I was buying a house, and I was like, oh my God, I hate having money in the bank. I hate it. It's just like the worst thing I can imagine. I also would like to point out that for people, when we talk about inventories and things like that, it's the opposite of what you think. Price action means as the price of silver goes up, people run to buy it. It's exactly the opposite of what you would think. The price of silver goes down, nobody's interested. You need to think like a great market maker. When the price of silver goes up, try to stand back a little. When the price of silver goes down, get as much as you can. So we're going to see a point where the price of silver starts approaching $30 very soon, I think. And that was the point that the bankers saw as that's their pain point back during when we had this silver squeeze. Everybody and their mother was buying silver because the price was moving up. As it moves up over $30, over $50, over $100, more and more people are going to be buying. They're not going to be staying away from silver. It puts it right in the front of their face on all the news channels, and people say, oh my God, why is silver moving up? And then we have all the bullet points of why silver should be the number one asset in your portfolio. So yeah,
I can hit that $30 relatively soon. Morgan was tweeting this the other day here about bank calls for 28 silver inside 90 days and maybe 30 in 6 months.
If it was freely traded, yeah, but it's not freely traded. I mean, literally, they can put the price of silver at minus $40 like they did with oil. You just got to get your head around the fact that this is not silver trading. These are derivatives, futures and options trading. And the Exchange Stabilization Fund has unlimited amounts of derivatives they can throw at this to keep the system going. Think of it as a gift to humanity that you can get your hands on some silver at any price right now, because the first people to stop selling silver as the price goes over $30 are going to be the brokers and dealers who know exactly what's going on. That threshold is a huge move, and over 50 it's going to be no one's going to sell a thing until they figure out what it's worth. So yeah, get your Road to Ruta bars.
Thanks, Lightcard Lisa. Here's mine. I got mine earlier. Was it yesterday? I think it came in the mail. Thank you so much, Bix. I really appreciate it. I love the new.
Well, thank you for you. We've got a nice bar swap going.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Andy, just before we go to on something Bix was just saying now. Oh shoot, I forgot what it was. Shoot.
Never seen that happen out of you, JC.
Wow.
No, I don't know what just happened. It's been a weird week. Let me just man, I had a question for you. Man, if I can only think about it. It was a good one too. A big something just before the bar. I brought up Lisa's comment. I forget what.
As the prices go up, people buy.
No. Man. What's that?
He's having a Mercury retrograde moment. It's okay.
Oh man, maybe it was in the comments. Let me go back and start my comments here. I like the Andy's playing. Yeah, no. Julie is smoking hot. Okay, thanks, Felipe. I didn't see that.
That was it.
Somebody says, "Wow, Julie." He said Jenny is drop dead gorgeous. I was like, it's not Jenny, it's Julie. Okay, he got it right on the second one, Felipe. I appreciate that. No, I forgot what the other comment was. It was about the banking system and.
Well. In the meantime, can I just say something? Maybe it's going to help you remember.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, because we've been talking about the eclipses and also how it's probably going to affect the banking system and also the value of silver and precious metals. But let's just not forget that while we're in the midst of this eclipse season, Mercury is in retrograde. So that means that it usually delays a bit everything. So it's going to be retrograde until May 14, and then Jupiter is going to to enter Taurus on May 16th. So I'm thinking mid-May, we're probably going to see the results of what just happened with the financial system with the eclipses. So usually it's more, I'd say, closer to the eclipses. But since we're having this Mercury retrograde, and Mercury is all about communication, announcements, the media. So I'm thinking there's a lot of things that are going to be hidden during the eclipse season. And I think it's still going to happen behind the scenes, but a lot of it will be hidden from the public with this Mercury retrograde, and probably announced more towards mid and end of May even. So
Okay,
I don't know
very
if
good.
that helped you.
Yes, you did help me. I just realized, yes, it was about the bank, and it was about this tweet from David Morgan. Andy, do you think that that's possible on the timeline? I mean, you have your ear to the ground, you have your hand on physical, you deliver physical on a daily basis. I know Bix just said, yeah, if it were fully traded, but at some point, the system that we have now, the EFPs, all the fraud, it's like, what did they say? When you go bankrupt, it's slowly at first, and then it's all of a sudden. Is this going to happen also to the price discovery in gold and silver? Are we close to that? Oh no! And the main question, I knew that was the lead up. The main question is, you told me once, you'll come a day when you might decide whether or not you're going to sell your silver. Your dad asked you that question. Do you feel that order? Are you coming close to that day where you might say, maybe I won't feel that order here because we're at that last moment, at that last graph, and I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow? Explain that to the audience before we go.
Well, first of all, I do think that that's how it will happen. And Hemingway said he went broke little by little, then all at once. And I think it was Hemingway who said that, but I think that's how it will happen. Everything is going to happen that way. It's going to happen on a Sunday night. There will be no time to prepare. If you didn't prepare, you're dead in the water. Everything will happen while we're asleep. The other side of the world that is accumulating all the gold and silver, that understands what it is, it represents true wealth. They'll flip the switch before we have any time to do anything. If you look at wire fraud that happens from across the world, it always happens on a Friday afternoon. So by the time you realize it, it's too late. Same thing's going to happen here. It'll happen on a Sunday night. We'll wake up and the price will just be impossible to even fathom how high it will go. And I say that to you because the biggest money in the world is betraying the price by the amount of silver that they are accumulating and draining off of the exchanges, both the LBMA and the Comex and the ETFs. So yes, I do think it will happen. And I do think those numbers are beyond realistic. And I think, quite frankly, even if you just took gold where it is right now and divided it by 7, all that would really be doing is showing you the geologic ratio between the two. Currently, it's coming out of the ground at 7-1. That puts silver at 250 or 60 bucks an ounce. 30 bucks an ounce is long overdue. And as Rustin Benham said, when silver got to 30 bucks an ounce, we had to tamp it down. So Bix is right. It hasn't been allowed to freely trade, but you know, the ability to suppress a market over time or to manipulate a market over time is only doable when you're pushing it in the direction that it's going. The rest of the world is accumulating gold and silver. Being on the wrong side of this by these bullion banks, I think, will run them over. If they're on the wrong side of a trade and it starts to go parabolic like that, this is what put Bear Stearns out of business. It will do the same thing to the bullion banks who are stupid enough to be short right now massive amounts at that moment when it does switch. So, and to your point,
Andy, do you think this is the year? I'm going to try to zoom you in. Do you think this is the year that manifests your father's prediction, where you wake up one day and you have to decide whether or not you're filling that last order?
Well, what he really said to me was, you know, we had 2 orders last year. Both of them were in excess of $50 million, 2 separate people. And, you know, what he was saying to me was, could there be a time when you have one person who comes in and says, I'll take everything you have? Would you do it? And that's a tough question. I mean, I think you could see that. Look, there's so much money out there. Just look what the pro athletes are making on a yearly basis in contracts. There's so much money out there. It would not take a lot for someone to say, I'll take 100 million. Give me anything you have. I don't care. Could that happen? What if it's a few hundred million? Could it happen? Sure. I'm surprised it hasn't. And I don't know what I would do, because it would wipe out all my inventory very, very, very quickly. So yeah, I think everyone's going to face all retail businesses like mine will face that, and I do think it will happen little by little, then all at once. And I do think the numbers that David are talking about, and much to David's fashion, he's a very conservative guy. I've known him for a long time, and he never says things that are outlandish. And I don't know if he's just saying what a bank analyst said, but I think those numbers are incredibly realistic and quite frankly would be massively undervalued even at those levels. So yes, the answer is yes, yes, and yes, and yes, and it will happen on a Sunday night, Monday morning, little by little, then all at once.
Wow. Okay, guys, you heard it first. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here this evening. You guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you for all the comments, and thank you to all my contributors. Please do go and support them. You can find Julie here, of course, for this upcoming Singing Bowl Scorpio full moon meditation here on May 3rd at beyondmystic.academy. You can find Mr. Bixweir here also at roadtoruda.com. And you can find Andy and the crew here at beyondmystic.net/silver. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. This was the Financial Eclipse special report. Have a great evening, and we'll see you soon.
You guys are the best. Thanks,
Au
JC.
revoir. Au revoir.
Au revoir.